You know, I've said this before. When you're a sportscaster and a quarterback comes in, he looks good. The two things I look at is how does he play when he's trailing? Everybody, when you lead 27-6 in the third quarter, the game's different for a quarterback. How do you look when you're trailing? And how do you look when you're missing a left tackle? Your number one receiver. You're on a backup quarterback. And I watched Mahomes and Purdy, and neither had a full set. I mean, it was just players everywhere. And in those high leverage moments, Matt, Mahomes is just crazy. I mean, Brady said it. It's like he's doing stuff you shouldn't do. Throw backwards, taunting. I mean, what do you make of Mahomes? Yesterday was a day. I don't know. People say he didn't play well, but in the big moments he did. So I thought, everybody has ugly picks. I thought he played kind of well, didn't he?
Listen, Patrick Mahomes does some stuff you're not going to find in the stat sheet. Even the play that Brady said you shouldn't throw back across your body. Like, that's a design play for that team. Like, that's how guys like Tom and guys like me and guys that can't do what he, like that physical stuff, that's how they get coached. Mahomes, that's part of their offense. That's just normal for them. I just think he's one of these guys that has those things that you call intangibles, where the opponent is intimidated without him really having to do anything. You saw where he ran over the guy in the end zone. The defender was so afraid of getting a flag because it's the Patrick Mahomes. And so, whether it's throwing it left-handed, underhand, behind his back, Patrick Mahomes almost has mind control over people the way that he plays. And listen, I say all that. He has not played his best football. I think he'd be honest and say that as well. He really has not played his best football. That offense hasn't looked their best. And yet they are probably the number one or number two in all of football right now.
First of all, San Francisco's good. They're going to win a bunch of games. Let's not overreact. But in this space, against this team, we're getting to a point now where I've seen this barbecue. I know what this looks like. Do teams get in other teams' heads, or was this just better team one to you for San Francisco?
Listen, yeah, Colin, I'm glad you brought that up. I think there's matchups that we don't talk about enough. It's play caller to play caller. It's Kyle Shanahan versus Steve Spagnuolo. Those two guys have gone up head-to-head so many times. Shoot, Spags has gone up against Mike Shanahan, never mind Kyle Shanahan. And so, there's definitely an element. I'm rewatching that game this morning, and I'm saying, wow, that was such a good defensive call. The Niners are an offense that has so much respect around the league that people copy them. They study them. They know them. And I just thought Spags' game plan was so exceptional. He knew where the hot was going to be. He knew not necessarily what they were going to do, but he knew what they were not going to do. So on their naked bootleg type stuff, based on formations, based on splits, he knew they weren't taking a shot. He knew it was a completion mindset. And those safeties were playing deep, but downhill. I mean, it was almost like they were told in the meetings, you have our permission in this formation with this action to play downhill and go for an interception. A lot of times defenders are told, hey, you're a safety. You're deeper than the deepest. They did not say that in this game yesterday. They were telling those guys to fire their gun. As soon as you see it, pull the trigger and make a play. And that's exactly what they did.
I had said everybody in Pittsburgh, Big Ben is you can't play Russell Wilson. And to Mike Tomlin's credit, Mike's this is why I get paid. And I know what I'm seeing. And I got to tell you, Matt, it was pretty choppy in the first quarter. There were some bad misses. And I'm thinking, boy, I look smart. And that second half, I'm I saw a quarterback who was not panicking, good feet. The cadence was good. He got Pickens involved. And I was well, the defense is good. Mike's won a Super Bowl. It's a power run game. Russell's in his prime, not making a ton of mistakes. I will say this. I think Russell's always been pretty darn good in the red zone when you can get him from out of the pocket and move it and he gets a defined look at stuff. I think he's pretty good in the red zone. I don't know. I was surprised by Russell, or should I have not been? Is this kind of what he was in Denver last year?
Well, what I'm not surprised by is Mike Tomlin. He's a very confident coach. There's a saying in football, be who you can afford to be. Mike Tomlin can afford to make a risky decision like this. He can afford to hey, you know what? I'll play the other guy. It's just the Jets. The meat of my schedule is coming up in about a month, maybe a few weeks. Let's just try it out. I trust him. Russell Wilson started out shaky, maybe rusty. I thought Pickens played great for him. I think playing with the lead helped. Thought it was good. Listen, I think you're going to see both quarterbacks this year, though. I don't think it's just one guy. I think there's stuff that Russell Wilson brings to the table. But like what you're talking about in that low red zone, I don't think he has that anymore. I don't think he's the scrambler and the runner that he once was. I mean, even on the quarterback sneaks yesterday, it wasn't like he was just showing his age a little bit. And so, like, I think you take how special Justin Fields can be as a runner in that low red zone meaning 10-yard line in.
Yeah.
Defensive coaches absolutely hate to go up against a guy from the 10-yard line in that can run. And you've seen Justin Fields score, I don't know, probably 5 touchdowns this year with his feet, whether it was a designed run or just, hey, they covered it perfectly and I'm going to go run. So I think you'll see both guys going forward. And it's a total thing that, like, Pittsburgh can do. They've done it in the past. I think they could do it again.
So you see this in the NBA, and we saw it with the Phoenix Suns, where you put a bunch of good players together, and there's this sense that, well, they're smart guys, KD and Bradley Beal and Booker, and they'll figure it out. Well, that's not really how it works. Like, there's different dynamics, and it takes a while. And I was reading Rich Cimini covers the New York Jets, and he had said in a post last night, he goes, this is just a accumulation of talented guys. It's not really a team. Now we're on an interim coach. It's old O-lineman, rookie O-lineman. You know, now we're on a second offensive coordinator. And I watched the Steelers, and I knew what they were. Regardless of limitations, I knew what I was watching. And I watched the Jets, and I'm like, their offense is kind of, let's dump it off to Breece Hall. Let's try a go route. Is it fair to say you played on 1, 2, 3, 5 teams? Were you ever on a team that was talented, but there was no cohesion? You felt like, we can't pull it together. I kind of feel like that watching the Jets.
Well, I'll say this. I think there's something really special about the Pittsburgh Steelers that is missing from the New York Jets right now. And I think what I would say is most special about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think anybody who played or coached in the NFL would agree with me, the Steelers are one of those organizations that they are bigger than any one player. Like, they just are. We're the Pittsburgh Steelers. We are bigger and more important than any one player, and we are a team. It's almost like the fans are a part of that, ownership's a part of that, and nothing gets in front of, like, the Steelers. And I just don't think the Jets have had that. I think the Jets have been sort of the opposite of that. And so there's something really special there. You mentioned basketball, but I mean, this is 11 on 11. And it's really 33. You got the offense, defense, and then you get the fourth down army there. So I think there's something unique. There's teams out there that are like that. The Baltimore Ravens are like that. In terms of, like, it's you're bigger than any one superstar player. And that gets harder and harder these days. But I think the Steelers have that, and I do think that's worth something.
So I'm watching the Vikings Lions yesterday, and Peyton Manning said once, he goes, listen, there's preseason speed, regular season speed, divisional rival speed, playoff speed, and Super Bowl speed. He goes, everything feels a little more intense. And I'm watching Vikings Lions, and I'm like, okay, that's playoff speed in the regular season. Those are excellent football teams. And I mean, for Detroit to go in there, I mean, I'm just watching playmakers everywhere. I'm like, how many Hall of Fame level players do we have in this game? This is an insane spectacle. I think you're going to look back at that game to win, to trail early, come back, trail again, come back. That's like, to me, I knew this year Detroit was hunted, not the hunter. That was a defining win for me as I watched them.
No doubt. And Colin, listen, like, I could talk about this game for an hour. I mean, they were down 10 points, but go back to the Dallas game. I think it was the Dallas game last week where, Ben Johnson's like calling all these plays to offensive linemen, doing all this craziness. Everyone's just like, oh, he's just having fun. He's just punching the bully in the mouth, all that stuff. No, it's not. It wasn't just that. He was thinking ahead. This is like a guy playing chess, okay? He's thinking ahead to, I'm playing Brian Flores coming up. I need to give him so much crap to think about and to study for and to, like, chill him out with all of his exotic cover zero blitzes and bluffs and all that kind of stuff. He was thinking ahead in that game. And so what he did is he got exotic against kind of a simple defense in Dallas, and then he got simple against an exotic defense in Minnesota. They went pretty basic. And then they got creative in the sense that they were going to block your defensive ends with a wide receiver plus a running back and take a shot. I just thought it was an excellent game plan. And I would say it started last week. It started last week where they said, you know what, we're thinking ahead about a division game. And you can tell that this team is hyper-focused on winning that division. Like every game's an important one, right? The biggest game's the next game. Yeah, whatever. But you can tell in that locker room, Dan Campbell has a mindset for the coaches and the players. This division is going to be ours. We are done giving this division up to other people. It's going to be ours. And it's a great division. So we'll see, but they're off to a great start, 1-0 in the division. And I really think it's because of how smart they played. I mean, everyone wants to talk about how tough they are. They played really smart.
I want to talk about this. I always say that the two things generally create a dynasty is you got about 7 of your best players in their prime. I think the Niners are getting a little creaky. Detroit's got Pro Bowl players. They're all in their prime or going into their prime. The second thing is the ability to be gifted and yet have a chip on your shoulder. Belichick did this for years. Do your job. We're not the most talented team. Kansas City's got that, where they're like, Reed is just constantly innovative, never gets stale. Detroit mauls you on the offensive line. But what I like about Goff, L.A. bailed on him. The city of Detroit, we've rolled our eyes at. Dan Campbell, knee biting. And your Seahawk teams, when you have great players, but in the building, there's a feeling like nobody respects us, nobody likes us. It may be make-believe. But I kind of feel that with Detroit. So many people, it's almost, they're in the perfect city, Detroit. Did you ever have a team where you were like, we have better players than everybody? But in the building, a lot of players thought they were disrespected.
Yeah, listen, I think the city of Seattle felt that way. You know, I remember Jimmy Johnson going on, the Fox pregame show, and he was like, yeah, they're up in South Alaska. It was almost like this chip on our shoulder, and I think our fans felt it. No one wanted to come up and cover our team. It was almost like being in the witness protection program if you played in Seattle. And so I think the 12s became a thing. Like they, when the national media came to do a game, when it was a primetime game, they said, you know what, we're going to be a part of this game. We are going to make the New York Giants jump off sides 11 times. We are going to send a message to the league. Like for sure. I think our team felt that. And I think Dan Campbell's the perfect fit for this, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a guy that was mentioned for head coaching jobs for years and years. He was an interim head coach and just kind of passed over. You mentioned bite off the kneecaps, that whole thing, kind of made fun of the Detroit Lions. Like when I was playing, they were the team that went 0-16. They're an afterthought. Even on Thanksgiving when Detroit plays and Dallas plays, it's always about Dallas. It's really never about Detroit. So I think absolutely. And then they drafted well. And then they take on the identity of their team and of their head coach. The whole team does. And then they're really tough. But like I could point to one play in that game. It was a touchdown pass to Khalif Raymond.
Yeah.
And 2 different guys, okay, a tight end and maybe a receiver have a chance to absolutely decleat someone on a blindside block. And when you always tell, like, we're tougher than them, like that, those are usually the people that get the 15-yard flag. And I just thought like they played so smart. Neither one of the guys took a cheap shot. It ended up being a touchdown. It ended up being very critical to the win. And so like, if you can balance that chip on your shoulder, that toughness, that mental toughness, physical toughness, plus just intelligent football, like X's and O's and all of it, I just think you're cooking with what you want to be cooking with. And they got it going on right now.
By the way, I love that you still remember what Jimmy Johnson said. That's still embedded in you.
It's funny. Listen, I mean, Tom Brady knows that he was picked 199. He's the greatest football player of all time. Like whatever it is, like you said, whether it's real or not real, you can take those things and people talking about it as like bulletin board material,
yeah.
But it can push a button with people. And I think Jared Goff getting kicked to the curb, getting unceremoniously sort of just shipped out of LA, I think it was good for him. And I think it was probably in the long run, something that endears him to his teammates, into that city.
Yep.
And, oh, by the way, he got graduate coursework from Sean McVay in the process. And I think he's one of the game's best quarterbacks, probably because of it.
Oh, God. This is 15, 20 minutes a week. We all get smarter. It's great seeing you. He's in a different room this week. Big construction. Hasselbeck could have bailed on us. He's like, just move me to the closet. I'll be fine.
Pretty much. I'm basically in a bathroom, Colin. We'll get it better. We'll get it right.
Great seeing you, my man.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.